I don't know what made me come home early that day. Call it intuition, a gut feeling, whatever. But something in me told me to skip the extra hour at work, to take a different route home, to walk through the front door when no one expected me to. I parked outside, letting the engine idle for a moment. The house was quiet, almost too quiet. Usually, when I came home, there was some noise, music playing, the TV on, dishes clinking in the sink. But today? Silence. Then I noticed something small but off. The front curtains were slightly drawn, not fully closed like my wife, Lauren, usually left them. And there was a car parked down the street, one I didn't recognize. Still, I told myself I was being paranoid. So, I stepped inside. The scent hit me first. It wasn't Lauren's usual vanilla perfume or the faint smell of dinner cooking. No, this was something different. A musky, heavy scent that didn't belong to me. It didn't belong to our home. I closed the door quietly and stood still, listening. Then I heard it. A low moan. Every muscle in my body locked up. My first instinct was to storm upstairs, to tear through the bedroom door and rip apart whoever was in there with my wife. But years of self-control kicked in. I had to be smart. I had to see it for myself. I moved up the stairs slowly, making sure each step was silent. My heartbeat pounded in my ears, but my breathing stayed calm. When I reached the top, I turned toward our bedroom, the door slightly ajar. I stepped forward just enough to see inside. There she was. Lauren, sprawled out on our bed, her legs spread wide, her head tilted back. And between her thighs, buried in her like a starving man at a feast, was a stranger. I didn't recognize him. Dark hair, broad shoulders, gripping her hips as if he owned her. My stomach twisted into knots, but I made no sound. No sudden movements. I just stood there, watching, absorbing every disgusting detail. She moaned again, her fingers tangling in his hair. God, you're so much better than my husband. I closed my eyes for a second. The words cut deeper than I thought possible. I wanted to lunge forward, to throw him off the bed, to make them both feel the kind of pain I felt in that moment. But instead, I stepped back. I turned, walked back down the stairs, and sat on the couch in the living room, waiting. Minutes later, I heard footsteps on the stairs. She was humming softly, probably feeling satisfied and happy, completely oblivious to the storm she was about to walk into. She turned the corner, and the moment she saw me, she froze. Her eyes went wide, her lips parting slightly, her whole body tensing. "Hey, baby," she said, her voice too high, too bright. "You're home early." She had no idea. She thought I didn't know. She thought I had just walked in, unsuspecting, unaware. And that's when I made my decision. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to throw punches. No, that would be too easy. Instead, I was going to destroy her. Piece by piece. Quietly. Carefully. Completely. I didn't answer her right away. I just sat there, watching her, letting the weight of the moment sink in. She shifted awkwardly, her smile faltering just a little. "Everything okay?" she asked, tilting her head, feigning innocence. I forced a tired sigh, rubbing my face as if I were simply exhausted from work. "Yeah," I muttered. "Long day." Her shoulders relaxed. She smiled again, stepping closer. "I was just about to shower," she said. "Want to join me?" I nearly laughed. The audacity. She had no idea that I knew. That just minutes ago, she had another man between her thighs. That I had stood there, watching, listening, feeling my entire life shatter into a million unfixable pieces. I forced a small, tired smile. "Maybe later," I said, standing up. "I think I just need to rest for a bit." I saw the relief in her eyes. She thought she was safe. She had no idea what was coming. That night, she curled up beside me in bed, her body warm and familiar. I lay still, staring at the ceiling, every cell in my body screaming at me to shove her away. But I didn't. I let her think everything was normal. Because from that moment on, she was my enemy. And enemies don't get the luxury of seeing their attack coming. The next morning, I left for work as usual. Kissed her on the forehead, told her to have a good day, played the part of the clueless husband. But instead of heading to my office, I made a stop at an electronics store. Hidden cameras. Small, high definition, motion activated. I spent extra to get the best. This wasn't just about catching her in the act, I already knew she was cheating. This was about gathering evidence. When I got home, I installed them. One in the bedroom, hidden between the books on the shelf. Another in the living room, tucked into the corner behind a plant. A third in the hallway, perfectly angled to catch anyone coming in and out of the house. By the time I finished, my hands weren't even shaking. I was cold now. Detached. I wasn't just a betrayed husband anymore. I was a hunter, and my prey had no idea she was being stalked. The next few days were a blur of routine. I kissed her goodbye in the mornings, pretended to listen to her talk about her day, made love to her at night while picturing the disgusting reality I had uncovered. And every night, after she fell asleep, I checked the footage. What I found made my stomach turn. She wasn't just cheating on me, she was laughing about it. She called him in the mornings after I left. Told him how much she missed him, how much better he was than me. They had inside jokes about me. Mocked the way I kissed her, the way I dressed, the things I did for her. She lied so easily, so effortlessly. And not just to me. She told her friends I was too controlling. That I didn't satisfy her anymore. That she stayed because she felt sorry for me. It wasn't just the betrayal of the body, it was the betrayal of everything. Her respect. Her love. Her loyalty. I clenched my fists as I watched them together, my jaw aching from how hard I was grinding my teeth. I didn't just want revenge anymore. I wanted ruin. I started with her lover, Daniel. A quick online search gave me everything I needed to know about him. Married. A manager at her office. 2 kids. A nice suburban home. I took screenshots from the camera footage, clear, damning evidence of their affair, and drafted an email. To Sarah Mitchell, Daniel's wife. Subject, your husband. Attached were 3 pictures. Daniel slipping into my house while I was at work. Daniel and Lauren in our bed. Daniel laughing while she lay naked beneath him. No message. No explanation. Just the truth. I hovered over the send button for a long moment. Then I clicked it. I imagined Sarah opening the email. The shock. The rage. The destruction that would follow. And for the first time in days, I smiled. It didn't take long for the fallout to begin. 2 days later, I came home early again. Lauren was on the phone in the kitchen, pacing frantically. No, you don't understand, I have no idea how she found out. She just, no, Daniel, listen. She turned and froze when she saw me standing there. Who was that? I asked casually. She swallowed hard. Just a friend. I tilted my head. A friend? Her fingers tightened around her phone. Yeah. Why? I shrugged. Just curious. Then I stepped closer, lowering my voice. Because you looked scared just now, Lauren. She paled. I watched the gears turning in her head, scrambling for an excuse, a lie, a way out. She had no idea she had already lost. I let it go for another week, letting her twist in the wind, panic brewing just beneath the surface. Then, one evening, I called her into the living room. Sit down, I said. My voice was calm. Controlled. She hesitated, but she obeyed. I reached into the drawer and pulled out a folder. Thick. Full. The product of weeks of work. Her eyes flickered to it, then back to me. What's that? I tossed it onto the table between us. Open it. She hesitated. Then, with trembling hands, she reached forward, flipped the cover open. And her whole world shattered. Screenshots. Transcripts. Call logs. Bank statements showing the money she had spent on him. Copies of my divorce filing. She gasped. Will, I can explain. No, I cut in. You can't. Her breath hitched. I stood up, towering over her. You're leaving tonight. I've already filed. The house is mine. You'll be getting nothing, thanks to the prenup you signed without reading. Tears welled up in her eyes. Please, I made a mistake, I love you, I laughed. A short, sharp sound. No, Lauren. You loved lying. And now? I stepped back, gesturing toward the door. Now you're nothing to me. She broke down, sobbing, begging. I didn't care. I walked upstairs, grabbed a bag she had left in the closet, stuffed it with random clothes, and threw it at her feet. Get out. She shook her head, reaching for me. Please. I stepped back. Out. And finally, she realized it was over. She stood slowly, shoulders hunched, head bowed, as she picked up the bag and walked toward the door. For the first time, she looked powerless. And when the door clicked shut behind her, I let out a breath. The war was over. And I had won. The house was quiet. For the first time in weeks, it was just mine. No more faked smiles, no more forced conversations, no more sharing space with a woman who had spent months laughing at me behind my back. Lauren was gone. I stood in the middle of the living room, staring at the door she had walked out of. It felt surreal. I had played my part so well, let her believe she had control right up until the moment I snatched it away. But the game wasn't over yet. Not for her. Not for Daniel. And definitely not for me. The first text came in the next morning. Lauren, Will, please talk to me. We can fix this. I made a mistake. I deleted it without replying. By noon, there were 5 more. By evening, she had started calling. I didn't answer. I imagined her sitting in some cheap motel, the weight of her decisions finally crushing her. The reality sinking in. She had spent months humiliating me, treating me like a fool. Now it was her turn to suffer in silence. The real fun started 2 days later. I woke up to a news article circulating on social media. Senior executive Daniel Carter terminated amid workplace misconduct allegations. I nearly choked on my coffee. I clicked the link. His company had acted fast. Sarah, his wife, had sent the pictures straight to HR, combined that with a few whispered rumors about favoritism at work, and suddenly, he wasn't just an adulterer, he was a liability. The cherry on top. His wife had already filed for divorce. She was taking half of everything. I scrolled through the comments beneath the article, grinning. People tore into him. Pathetic. Disgusting. They called him every name in the book. I imagined him sitting in his now half-empty house, jobless, wife gone, reputation destroyed. And all because he thought he could take what was mine. I took a sip of coffee and enjoyed the moment. By the end of the week, Lauren showed up at the house. I saw her through the peephole, standing on the porch, looking wrecked. Her once perfect hair was a mess, dark circles framed her eyes, and she wore the same wrinkled clothes she'd had on for 2 days. She knocked. Then knocked again. Then, after a moment, she spoke through the door. "Will," her voice cracked. "Please, just let me talk to you." I didn't move. Didn't say a word. She sniffled. "I don't have anywhere to go." "Good." She tried the doorknob, but it was locked. She let out a choked sob, pressing her forehead against the wood. "Please," she whispered. "I made a mistake." I turned and walked away, leaving her outside in the cold. Let her feel powerless. Let her understand what it meant to be thrown away. Lauren didn't stop trying to contact me. She called. She texted. She even sent long, pathetic emails. I ignored every single one. But I knew ignoring her wasn't enough. She needed a final push. A public one. So I took the best clips from my hidden camera footage, the ones where she laughed about me while cheating, and uploaded them anonymously to a cheating exposure website. I made sure everyone saw what she really was. Her friends. Her co-workers. Her family. The shame hit her like a truck. 2 days later, I got my first and last reply from her. "Lauren, I hate you." I laughed. She hated me. Good. That meant she finally felt something close to what I felt. And that meant I had one. In the weeks that followed, I started living again. I repainted the walls. Got rid of the old furniture. Cleared out every trace of Lauren from the house. And with every change, I felt lighter. People in town who used to whisper about me when Lauren played the neglected wife routine now looked at me differently. With respect. With understanding. I started seeing someone new. Nothing serious, just someone who wasn't a liar. And for the first time in a long time, I felt free. I didn't see Lauren again until 3 months later. I was at the grocery store, grabbing a few things, when I spotted her by the frozen food aisle. She looked awful. Thin. Worn out. Like someone who had lost everything. She saw me, too. Her eyes widened, and for a moment, I saw hope. Like she thought I might forgive her. I stared at her for a long second. Then, without a word, I grabbed what I needed and walked right past her. She was nothing now. Not my wife. Not my problem. Not even a regret. Just a mistake I would never make again.